Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, and welcome everybody to our next solo character challenge run with the knight. Let's start. As usual, I will be starting just kind of watching the intro as normal until we get control of our characters, and then I will restart in order to be able to unlock all the job classes right away. Once again, we use the cheat code to unlock all the job classes basically from the beginning, so well, it's gonna be more interesting if we don't miss out on any bosses or enemies with that chosen job class. In the case of the knight, it would actually be decently reasonable to just not worry about that, because there is exactly one kind of mini boss, not even a real boss really, that we will be missing out on in the wing raptor. So I guess I don't actually really have to do that here, do I? Yeah. Oh well, that's that. That'll be fine. I'm actually just not gonna reset, because we're just gonna get our knight job class after the wing raptor anyways. Might as well just roll with it. It's been a while since last time I did it this way around. It'll be a good night, indeed. Welcome to you, Ricodactylus. I hope you're doing well. Welcome as well, Rylokar. I hope you have a nice day as well. Final Fantasy 5 PC is on sale, but how good is the port? If it's really cheap on sale, I think it is worthwhile. I do not feel like it is a particularly great port, but it is playable. Not terrible. Decidedly average, I would call it. But on a low enough sale, I would think it is worthwhile. Do I still have the Berserk save file? Yes, that's actually on the cartridge. This is on the SD2 SNES in order for me to play with the English fan translation, so those are actually separate. Welcome to you as well, Life Tactics. I hope you have a nice day, and welcome to Millie Mozilla. Hello and welcome. Hope you have a nice day as well. I knew there was somebody else I may have almost missed. But yeah, the Berserker, I will probably keep that on the cartridge forever until the battery runs out, which I hope is not gonna be anytime soon. Does it have the GBA jobs? No, this one here does not have GBA jobs. GBA currently I have to play in emulator because, well, I don't have a EverDrive or something of that equivalent for Game Boy Advance games. I wonder whether you could have like a Super Game Boy on the SD2 SNES and play Game Boy games over that. But then again, you couldn't play GBA games, that's different. And yes, let's actually get into the solo character challenge run. For anybody who might just be watching this for the first time, this is basically, the concept is, in Final Fantasy 5 you can choose to make your character into any of the available job classes you have currently unlocked at any given time without any downsides really. And you basically gain the stats from that job class, and as you gain more and more experience with that job class, you unlock also their abilities. Then you can put these abilities onto other job classes while changing your character into these jobs as well. So those are all possibilities. In this case, we're going to just take a single character, which we chose last time is going to be Ferris, and we are going to take a single job class, in this case Knight, and are going to run all the way through the game with that, or try to anyways. Only really the Berserker is humanly unreasonable to completely complete, but we did get that one all the way up to the final boss. What new jobs are there in the Game Boy Advance version? We have an Oracle, which is a bit of an oddball class, but is actually pretty powerful if you know how to use it. You have the Gladiator, which is basically in almost every regard a better knight fighter type class with heavy armor and such, and also a lot of different types of weaponry. Pretty interesting on that. The Cannoneer, which has a rather powerful mix command if you know how and when to use it, and even its baseline abilities are really strong. And there is the Necromancer, who has some of the most ridiculously powerful spells, but the downside that you're always undead, meaning you can't heal yourself through normal means in combat. Alrighty, where was I? Battle speed, we set to 5. because basically battle speed only really affects the enemies, not really your character. So 5 is about where I don't have to wait for too long if I want to delay my turn, but I still have plenty of time to input my commands if I need to. So we are relatively slow, but not the slowest. Message speed, we go for 1 for the fastest. Window set, command is short. Basically I can press up, down, left and right in order to select my commands in combat, rather than having a list of the commands where there's fight, ability 1, ability 2, and then items normally in a list. Short is just up is attack, down is item, left is ability 1, right is ability 2. Gauge is your ATB gauge. This is basically action time bar or combat. Basically there's time element to the combat system. Memory cursor, so the game remembers where I had the cursor last time, so I don't have to really worry about this anymore. And last time I think Targaryen decided that we're going to go with pink. Oops, I'm going to try and recreate the pink that we had last time. I made a screenshot, so I will be able to hopefully recreate this. One more here. This is about right. Yeah, this looks about right. Alrighty. I hope this is still well visible, readable. Yeah, we can save over this one, that's fine. Alrighty, let's go. We're also going to be choosing fairies as our main character in this run here, as well as the name has been chosen to be Tyrion. I like that name. So bright, is it? We can make it a little bit darker if desirable, but I thought it was kind of fine. Let's see how it looks in combat. Yeah, maybe a little bit. So, you cannot run away from combat here against goblins. You have to defeat those, which means after the tutorial fights here, Butts is going to be at least level 2. So there's not a whole lot we can do about it. Plus, we are going to do a Brave Blade run. What this means is, at some point in the later stages of the game, you have the choice between using a Brave Blade, which grows weaker every time you run away from combat, or a chicken knife, which grows stronger every time you run away from combat. Over the entire course of the game. Tyrion... there we go. It's rather red than pink. Maybe that's just how it appears on stream. It appears more pink to... I guess it is more red via OBS. I guess it depends on the monitor. Might depend on the monitor, because I have 2 different monitors. It is definitely more red on the right one and more pink on the left one. It's a bit strange. 724 for the PC port. I think for $5 you could pick it up. Maybe 7 is a bit too much of a card. That's just my opinion though. It's a dark salmon for you. Yeah, basically I just recreated the same color that Targaryen asked for, and that was apparently fine. So, oh well. Alrighty, we're actually going to do a little bit of a weird thing here. So, because I cannot run away from combat, that means actually the first cave here, I also cannot run away, and because Ferris is not yet in our party, what I will want to do is I will want to have somebody fight all the fights. And that somebody is actually going to be Galuf in this case. So Galuf is going to be kind of like a secondary knight for us, because when Ferris is not present, which is I think literally just right here and then the antlion battle somewhere later, we just need to have somebody else who can do a little bit of fighting. And Galuf also has the solo Gilgamesh fight, so I might as well go ahead and just, well, give Galuf everything, because he will also have to get through the prison somehow. Magenta for you. Alrighty. Yeah, I don't want it to be too bright, because it should still be not too bad for the eyes, honestly. And I figured that was actually quite acceptable still. Alrighty. So, what we are gonna do is, I'm actually going to run over here. And we're going to get into more battles. How do you decide which character to use? Basically, at the end of the previous solo character challenge, there's a raffle. And the first winner can tell us whether we should use bots or fairies. The main reason why it's either bots or fairies and not Lena and Galuf is because Lena and Galuf are missing from quite a few more battles than all the other characters. So in my opinion, it just makes the most sense to have these two instead. You told me how to use Lena. I feel like your cheat code only works in the iOS port version, probably. Or did you have an actual suggestion that I may have missed, Kay? Because here's the funny thing. In theory, a knight might have the best shot at defeating Merugine at level 1 through the use of the Sleep Blade as well as the Fire Sword. It needed a crouch jump, right? Dragoon SSC only. Sure. I mean, actually, with a red mage, a black mage, we could conceivably take Lena. Because red mage can put an antline to sleep, red mage can put Merugine to sleep. Although it would be really difficult to get past the mummies, honestly. Like, virtually impossible. Without a ridiculous amount of luck. Did I check Final Fantasy Dimensions? I did not yet, actually. I forgot. Also, we're gonna do one left movement in order to delay the enemy combat here. Also, what I'm gonna do, we're gonna have Galuf in the lead for now. And I want you to take off your weapon and armor. You take off your armor, you can keep the weapon. Galuf gets the weapon. And once again, I'm going to just have Galuf be our secondary knight. Because I cannot run away from any battles at all, ever. So, otherwise the Birthplate is going to be significantly weaker. There are inescapable encounters in the pyramid. Well, they are really difficult to run away from, but not inescapable per se. Alrighty. Going to just have Galuf take out one of the steel bats already, because I really don't want him to accidentally die here. Especially since it will seemingly take a while until Bots managed to take himself out. Let me help you out with that a little. It looks like they were fighting amongst each other. And Galuf just goes, "Quiet, you two!" Alright, finally, silence. So yeah, it's still a solo character challenge run, so I'm only going to have Galuf around. But yeah, it's gonna be difficult to run through here without too many resources. We have 2 more potions. I really hope this is gonna be sufficient. He does not have any other accessories, does he? Nope. Well, let's just hope he doesn't get killed. They don't do a whole lot of damage here, but well, we also don't have a whole lot of HP. Gained another level. Galuf is already level 3. Oh dear. This thing earlier used Claw, so as long as the bat does not use Claw, it should be fine. Welcome to you, Macho Z. Did Think Circle help me clear? Think Circle hasn't yet produced a result that we could conceivably use, to my knowledge, but it is looking really interesting, but we have not yet cleared the Solar Berserker. Still on my cartridge and ready to try whenever the opportunity arrives. And welcome to you, Duckfist. Thank you for the good luck, and I also wish you a nice weekend. That was 4 minutes ago, and well, I'm that slow at reading. But thank you. Hope you're doing well. Unfortunate? Yeah, it's honestly, you could say unfortunate, which is true, but it's also honestly completely expected. Because I never expected to be able to beat Solo Berserker. So we just kind of go with whatever we have, so to speak. But we managed to get all the way to the final boss, which is... well, it was a long journey already. Down to 3 more hits needed. I feel actually like I was miscalculating that, to be completely honest. I'm not entirely sure though. Vampire. Vampire deals damage equivalent to half of however much HP you're missing. The bat wasn't missing any HP yet, so of course it did 0 damage to us. Alrighty, I think we are making it through the cave, so that's good. Whew. Knocking out Galuf is going to be a little bit more tricky than usual, just because he has a bit more HP now. But then again, there's going to be one part where he's not gonna get knocked out at all. Okay. The translation is this, by the way, fan or PS1? This is the fan translation. PS1 version I unfortunately cannot currently play because apparently PlayStations are region locked. So I can't play my Anthology disc on my PlayStation 2 from the US. Sad face. Actually, I totally would do one of these solo runs on PlayStation if I could. Just because that sounds like fun. Kind of like fun. I just remember I like the music in that game, honestly. The PlayStation version. Except for the big battle on the big bridge. That one was noticeably weaker, but every other music in FF5 I felt like was more pleasant. Is there any difference? Gameplay-wise, there is some minor differences that I know of, but there might be more that I just, well, don't know of. The difference in particular I'm thinking of is in the original Super Famicom version here, you cannot run away if your entire party is berserked. Presumably that's a bug, and well, that is actually fixed in the PlayStation version. So you can in fact run away from encounters with 4 berserkers. The music is definitely like upgraded because they could use the full potential of the PlayStation discs. I don't really know whether there's any other gameplay changes. Load times are terrible. When I played it with the Berserkers, I didn't feel like the load times were that bad. Like, I keep hearing that, but when I experienced it, it's just like, yeah, it's a bit longer, but it's not terrible. At least in my opinion. I mean, I would play the PlayStation version again, just for the music. Because I'm not really reading the text anyways. The text is, well, the translation, I mean. It's not really any better than Lufia 2, if you know what I mean. Not as bad as Chrono Trigger PlayStation 1. That one had at least nice cutscenes, right? I would like to play that version sometime. I wonder if you can find comparisons on YouTube. I would be interested if you find any. Disk-based systems always have bad load times. Some of them actually handle it really well, I would say. As in some games, I mean. If you look at the Metroid game on the GameCube, they actually handle the loading really, really well. Others, if you look at the same console with... what was it? Lost Kingdoms. Those have really long loading times. To be fair, it loads the entire level, but still really slow. Alrighty, so we now have Fairies in our party, who is going to be the lead, and Fairies does automatically come with one of the better weapons, a dagger, so we will be able to use that. Actually, before I go here, I will need a bunch more potions, I think. There's no encounters in the water, there are encounters on the land, for whatever that's worth. PS5 and its SSD will be glorious. I mean, can't you just load stuff onto an SSD for the PS4 already? I actually don't know. Like, I've never really played that PS4 at all. Either way, when I was looking for the music for the PlayStation version of Final Fantasy V on YouTube, I couldn't really find anything. So, we're going to the beginner's house here. Oh, I pressed the wrong button. No loitering! Ouch. You need to tell her that you're a beginner in order to be able to gain access to all the free stuff. And so apparently she has a memory of a goldfish. And, well, we can just grab things, and that is mainly just to be able to buy potions. Potions only heal 50 HP, 50, so it's not a whole lot, but it's going to be basically sufficient, I think. I'm going to grab a few more things around town. And then I sell a bunch of things just to make money for potions. And once again, remember, I can run away from combat, but I really shouldn't, otherwise I'm going to make the Brave Blade weaker in the end. The Brave Blade starts with an attack power of 150, I think? To give you a frame of reference, the second strongest weapon with the chicken knife has 127, if I'm not mistaken, which is ridiculously powerful. So you would think the Brave Blade should be even stronger than that. And honestly, the Brave Blade is really strong, but it's not as good as the numbers may make it seem. Because the chicken knife benefits from both agility and strength, the Brave Blade only benefits from strength in terms of stats. So it's not quite as good. It's still really good, but not quite as good as it initially seems. Alright, I'm selling your armors that you came with, everybody, selling your Phoenix Stones and Ethers, and I'm just going to stock up on all the potions. What do I think about the GBA translation patch for the SNES? I've actually never tried that one. And I haven't really read the GBA translation in a while, so I don't remember how that would work out. Okay, Ferris is in the lead, that's good. Alrighty, for a solo character challenge run, the beginning is always a little bit the most tricky part, since we are really weak, and the enemies, while they are not particularly strong, they just pose a threat just based on them being able to hit us. Also, I'm going to, first of all, equip the leather shoes on fairies, because each individual point of defense does actually matter. And leather shoes, well, it's an accessory that gives you 1 defense. Not terrible this early on, honestly. So I'm going to hit you, going to hit you, going to hit yourself. It's not gonna knock you out though. I'm gonna hit you. Ooh, Galov needs actually 3 hits now. Excuse me. So yeah, I don't really have a way to reasonably and reliably... Ah, that's rude. Thank you. To reasonably and reliably knock out all my party members yet, so... This is basically as good as it gets for now. And I just hope this guy doesn't continuously entangle me. That's it. And thank you. In your opinion, the best translation? It's very well possible, honestly. The Game Advance, I think, is effectively the definitive version or definitive version of this game, in my honest opinion. Like, it just has the best quality of life features, it has all the bonus content in it if you care about including a bestiary, stuff like that. Okay, what do we get here? 2 black goblins. Alright, because it's a preemptive, we can knock them out before they have the chance to do anything against us. Black goblins are going to be dangerous, I think, at level 6. I never remember whether they are level 5, 6 or 7. Either when we are the same level as the goblins, the danger is going to be that they will be able to hit us for 8 times damage, ignoring our defense. Because Goblin Punch does that. So yeah, let's see how this is going to go. For now, I'm actually pretty happy finding these individual enemy encounters. Each one is worth 20 experience, and we are leveling up relatively quickly this early. So yeah, this kind of works. Once we are level 5, I'm actually going to move up higher into the area, which I think we just reached, and try to take out the Wing Raptor, because I would like to go and get our Knight job pretty much right away. Right now there is not exactly much of a difference between having a Freelancer instead of a Knight, we just have lower stats. So in a sense we're making it slightly more difficult for ourselves for that matter. And welcome Tag, thank you for the good luck, I can definitely use this. So, at level 5 we deal a bit more damage to all enemies thanks to reaching additional attack multipliers, so we can even sit in the back row and deal full damage. There's another broadsword here, which means that Buds now deals a bit more damage to himself, or in this case Tyrion, although you could say that the Knight is Tyrion here. So this is our first tutorial boss. You're not supposed to attack when it has its wings closed. And other than that, it uses Breath Wing, which deals 25% of your maximum health and damage each time it hits to your entire party. Our entire party is just one character, so doesn't really make that much of a difference. So here we are. So, in terms of stats, the only time you ever see characters differ in stats is either when they have different jobs, or the individual characters have a slight boost or malus to individual stats of their own overall. What this means is that Ferris has slightly more agility than everybody else in this party, has more magic power than Galov and Butts, she has more strength than Lena and the same strength as Galov, slightly less strength than Butts. So basically overall Ferris' stats are actually on average the highest of any of the 4 characters we currently have access to. And especially in terms of agility, that actually can make quite a bit of a difference. Ooh, these are spooky. So those Moldwind enemies, on their second turn, they can cast Arrow. Arrow is the basic level wind attack. It's a blue magic spell that you can learn if you have a blue mage. And it deals about 70 to 80 damage. We have just barely enough HP to survive one of these things without them going. And if this was not a preemptive strike, we would actually have been in a little bit of trouble. We could always get lucky and they don't use Arrow spell at all, but yeah, it's a little bit spooky there. So, we immediately go and grab the crystals, because now we will be able to use, well, our Knight class for the first time. Moltres, I think you're watching the wrong stream here. The only problem with the GBA version is if you're very attentive to the audio quality, the GBA sound chip is notoriously awful, but I can live with it. Yeah, that's what people say. It seems like I don't have that much audio attention in a sense, because I don't really notice much of a difference unless I do a direct comparison. Like, I feel like the audio of the Game Boy Advance version is still fine. Sure, it's a bit lower quality, but it's still quite alright. Alrighty, and now we will get our Night Job class. Our Night Job class is definitely the first one we will have that is going to effectively fight everything along the way. Most of the time I just run away from any encounter that is not particularly efficient or worthwhile to take. But because of the Brave Blade run, this is going to force me to fight virtually everything. The Knight will, at least in the early stages of the game, have reasonably good damage in order to deal with everything once we unlock one of the first few abilities. And, well, we will see how that's going to work out for us. To be fair, the GBA was optimized for tiny speaker, not a TV speaker. Yes, indeed. I mean, also, overall, like, we really remember these Game Boys and Game Boy Advance and even just generally Nintendo consoles very fondly, but they were as popular as they were for a reason, and that is also because largely they were relatively cheap in comparison to all the other counterparts. So that means, because they were cheap, they also had to make cuts for certain things like sound quality for audio chips and such. So it's just natural that this is how they ended up. Check out the order difference between the 20-second and 2-minute segments. I mean, I can do that once we start grinding and don't have too much problems anymore with survivability. Alrighty, so here we have the Knight. Knight is one of the first crop classes you unlocked, and in comparison to the original Game Boy game, the Knight is actually pretty much the equivalent of your fighter. Doesn't do a whole lot, it wears heavy armor and uses swords. In this case, you finally have access to the elusive class of Knight Sword equipment. So there's two different types of swords. There is just regular swords and there's Knight type swords. Of course, a Knight can equip Knight type swords, and so finally we get access to a few more of the more interesting and also kind of powerful weapons, which we will absolutely take advantage of. Also, being able to equip a shield is a huge benefit in so many instances that this is just amazing, honestly. I love having shields in this game. They are so good. The leather shield initially only blocks 10% of the attacks, but 10% is a lot more than 0%, let's put it that way. Alrighty, for our stats, we currently have 50 strength, which is definitely on the higher end. I believe only the monk has higher strength than that as a baseline. We have 28 agility, which is below average, I think. Not entirely sure. Either way, we're going to be slower than the next first boss, the Carl boss. So that's less than ideal, but oh well, not much we can do about it. 46 agility, vitality, which means we have pretty solid, actually really high HP growth, so that's going to be useful. We only have 12 magic power, which really for the most part that's not going to make a huge difference, I would say. And that's our stats. I'm going to walk over into this warp, which means it's going to give me the tutorial for how to, well, chop class change, but it's also going to heal everybody to full, which the downside is, well, everybody's healed to full, so I need to knock them out again. The upside is, well, Ferris is also healed to full. This is a warp back outside, and because the Moldwinds and the Black Goblins are still relatively dangerous, I wanted to just take the warp outside rather than walking, because we will have to do a little bit more fighting until we unlock our first ability with the Knight. It's not going to take too long because it's going to be unlocked relatively soon, but until then, well, it's going to take a while. You get a dagger, because Ferris now uses a broadsword. The broadsword, so technically the dagger is still the better weapon, all things considered, because it actually deals slightly more damage despite having less base attack power, just due to the strange agility formula. So, alrighty. Knocking everybody out. Trying to get past the black goblins in terms of levels, and that will be fine. Thank you for your kind words, Uncreative Automaton. I like your name, by the way. Thank you very much. Alrighty, I'm going to hit this thing. Ooh, that's actually not enough damage to knock out a white snake in one hit. That's actually concerning. So the white snakes like to paralyze you, and being paralyzed is one of the worst status effects that can occur to you in a solo character challenge. So I want to be really careful about that. In this case I probably should focus on defeating the Moldwins first, because arrow can be a thing. Although I have to admit the black goblins might be dangerous too. Hard to tell. Let's see. Goblin Punch, 6. Alrighty, we are not currently on the level where the goblins are indeed dangerous, but I feel like we are soon going to be. Ferris gained another level, and now we are at level 6. Let me see real quick for how the modifier works out. Level 6? Yep, indeed. Alrighty. So, at level 6, we actually will deal a little bit more damage. What I mean with this is that our level times strength and then some more stuff is going to result in us having an additional attack modifier. In Final Fantasy V, you do not gain a little bit of more damage every single level unless you're a monk. Every other class that is not a monk gains basically level or a little bit of attack power in increments. And those are basically the multipliers with which we multiply our attack power with the current weapon we are using. And in this case we are just using a broadsword, which means that has a baseline attack of 15. Not amazing, but still possible. And we have an attack multiplier of 4 right now. 4 times 15 is 60 damage, with a little bit of variance here and there. So that's kind of the way you want to imagine this. We have a little bit of variance, but it is 60 damage approximately if the enemy have no defense at all. Once we hit level 7, we still deal the same damage. However, once we hit level 8, we have a multiplier of 5, which means then it's 5 times 15, which means our average damage is going to be about 75 on an enemy with 0 defense. And yeah, that's it. By the way, these goblins are dangerous with their Goblin Punch right now, but because we have relatively high maximum HP as a knight, they are not nearly as dangerous as they normally could be, thanks to us more or less guaranteed surviving a Goblin Punch right now, even if it deals 8 times damage. Isn't that a back row white snake? Yes, and in the previous encounter, when I dealt 30 damage to the white snake, with just the black goblin and the white snake, it actually dealt half damage because of row. So, in Final Fantasy V, there is the concept of back row and front row. Right now, Ferris is in the front row, and in this case, the white snake is in the back row, the black goblin is in the front row. So that means, because the white snake is in the back row, it takes 50% less damage from my attacks. There's technically a case where it's slightly less than 50% damage in the back row, but let's just roll with it. If the white snake is in the back row, it takes half damage from my physical attacks. Magic attacks or reach attacks still deal the same damage. Both the Moldwin enemy as well as the black goblins, they are still in the... They are still in the front row right here, and this is not good. I just hope that the black goblin does not use Goblin Punch twice. I think it's a 1 in 3 chance. And we're dead. Oh, wow, alright, yeah, that can happen. First death. So this is the danger of me knocking out the white snakes first, I suppose. Alright, we want to get to level 8 before we move on much further, I think. Normally I would have run away from that battle, but because we have the Brave Blade, well... I effectively can't run away, is the short version. Also getting paralyzed here could actually spell our doom as well, because it's a back attack. In the back attack, we are now in the back row rather than the front row, because effectively the enemies are attacking from up behind, so the back row is swapped with the front row. And indeed, we get unlucky enough and we get completely knocked out. But this is why I save very, very frequently this early on in the game. A back attack is a 1 in 16 chance, so it's not terribly likely to happen, but it will happen once in a while. Goblin Punch is such an odd spell. It is very much a very odd spell, yeah. So, we are grinding here for a few more levels in order to tackle the next boss. We're basically trying to do this for two reasons. First, I'm gonna get rid of you, so no more Goblin Punches. Hopefully no Entangle, but we'll see that in just a moment. Oh, we resisted the Entangle, that can happen too. So we get lucky. So the snake can still entangle us, but all this does is it really costs us time. Technically, it could just continuously entangle us forever if it feels like it, but practically this is very unlikely to happen. So we just ignore that possibility for the most part. Sorry. I'm going to save again, because we got a bunch more experience. And we should very soon be past level 7, where the goblins are no longer as big of a danger. Watching this early game is more stressful than the late game fights. A little bit. Alrighty, let's talk about the knight itself. The knight has a special ability that is called Guard. The Guard allows you to block all physical attacks by an enemy, and it will deal 0 damage to you. Basically, Guard is going to have very, very limited usefulness in a solo character challenge run, because if I Guard, I cannot really do anything else. So that's a bit of a problem. But for example, once we reach phase 2 at X-Death at the end of World 2, we can just Guard and we effectively win as long as we have our wall ring equipped. Also, finally, we are level 8! Hooray! Wait, no, we're not. I thought we leveled up. One more enemy encounter. Either way, it will have some uses, but for the most part, it's more of a party ability. One of the Knight passives ability is that they will block attacks from enemies if they are directed at an ally that is in critical health. So this means it's gonna be sometimes maybe a little bit more difficult to knock my allies out, because the Knight will just block the attack instead. We just hope that doesn't really happen. Alrighty, we finally reached level 8. Already 195 HP, which is a pretty extreme contrast to our previous character, who I think had almost still below 100 HP at this point. Can the Knight cover against her own attack? I don't think they can. I believe when you attack yourself, the Knight will also not cover for the attack, but I'm not entirely sure about that. Either way, a common strategy against some of the bosses is to have party members in critical HP, have a Knight with Guard to just block all the physical incoming damage, and not worry about anything at all afterwards. So it does not matter which kind of equipment you have, as long as you have Guard, you will take 0 physical damage if you activate it. I don't think so, Thalfon, but I would need to test it. And yes, Thief completely prevents back attacks if you have a Thief in your party. Hey, there's an elixir, that's what I'm looking for. So, right now I'm also looking to get like 3 or 4 elixirs in order to be able to pass the next boss. Also, we already leveled up to Knight level 1, which means we now have cover. Cover near death allies. So this is an innate ability that knights all automatically have whenever you have a knight in your party. So me selecting that and attaching that ability to a knight is completely pointless because it's the exact same thing twice. Plus for a solo character challenge run it's not terribly useful. The ability I'm looking for is going to be, I think, the next one, or at least it's not going to be that much further away. And that ability is actually one of the more powerful ones in this game here. It will have a certain drawback that we can no longer use a shield, well, unless we lose the... We can still technically use a shield, we just lose the bonus, is what I'm getting at. Either way, it's gonna be a thing. Arrow. Ow. So yeah, these Moldwind enemies have a 1 in 16 chance to drop elixirs, so the encounter with 3 Moldwinds is currently my favorite one. Because, well, 3 times a 1 in 16 chance to drop elixirs. Or if you want to actually math it out, it is 15 divided by 16 to the power of 3 to not get an elixir, so you can have that entire number, or 1 minus that entire number in order to figure out what the probability is to get at least 1 elixir. Or more specifically, not 0. Is your HP growth permanent? Like if you were to use a knight for 19 levels then switch to a dancer, would that knight dancer have more HP than the dancer at level as a dancer throughout? No. In this game here, your HP is always calculated off your current base vitality. Which means if you switch job to another class, it will just adapt the base vitality of that other class. So if I turned Fairies into a dancer right now, she would have like 100 HP instead of 200. So the HP growth is not permanent. There is a base level amount of HP you gain each level, and then the additional bonus is calculated off of how your level times vitality and some other formula that I don't know by heart. 17.6% for that, I see. Alright. So right now I'm in the back row and the white snake is in the back row, which means actually the white snake right now would have taken a quarter damage, and we are not quite strong enough to deal enough damage to, well, punch through that HP. So it was more useful for me to kill the black goblin first. Whenever the front row of an enemy set dies, their back row moves to the front row, or at least part of it does. Wow, it's only 10% chance to block Fairies, come on. It's a little bit silly right now. Alrighty, so... But yeah, in case you're wondering why I need elixirs already, the simple answer is the best healing item you can have currently heals 50, that is 50 HP. And we do not have time to invest multiple turns to heal up in the next boss battle. We have to heal up in one go, otherwise we are effectively just dead, really. Or very likely dead anyways. And that's why I need to have elixirs to heal up immediately to full before too long. So from a leveling standpoint, a good threshold of levels to reach would be like level 11 or level 13. At level 13 I get additional attack multipliers as I do at level 11. Let's see, at level 11 I have a 6 times multiplier, 6 times 15 is 90, and at level 13 it's a 7 times multiplier, so that is 105 baseline damage with just the broadsword. So that's pretty good. The next boss does not have any defense, so we can just take the value straight up. There are situations, like healing turns, where equipping a shield would still have value. Yes, absolutely. Kind of like how I equip a Guardian Dagger on other classes. During healing turns, I would want to equip shields as well as a Guardian Dagger, just because additional physical block chance will be very, very useful. Whew. Varys gained another level. What level are we now? Level 10. One more level and we'll deal about 105 damage. Curiously enough, until level 16, if we are in the back row and the enemies in the back row, we actually still will deal minimum damage, just because of how everything is rounded down in Final Fantasy V. So basically, instead of the damage being halved when you're in the back row, like the final damage, what effectively gets halved is your attack modifier. So if you have an attack modifier of 5, that means with the broadsword that is 5 times 15, that is 75 damage. You would actually get your modifier halved, which means that it would 5 is halved, that's 2.5, rounded down because everything gets rounded down in this game, which means he would only deal 30 damage to whatever the back row is, with a multiplier of 5, which is why for a long time you saw only, well, 30 damage to whenever we attack the back row here. Now that we have 6, we should deal about 45-ish damage to the back row. Well, actually, we don't have 6 yet. At level 11 we will have 6. Like right now it's still 30-ish damage, which is enough to take out these enemies here. Wow, not getting lucky with the Molten counters, currently anyways. Also, now that Goblin Punch no longer ignores our defense and deals 8 times damage, it is kind of pitiful damage. I wonder whether anybody ever figured out Goblin Punch on their casual playthrough without looking up how it actually works. Because I can imagine some people might have gotten caught off guard by a Goblin Punch just dealing 120 damage all of a sudden and just being completely thrown off, but then trying it and maybe also hitting an enemy where they dealt a ridiculous amount of damage but then just nothing. Kinda curious whether that might have happened to somebody exactly like that. Seems rather specific. Hey, my favorite encounter. We will most likely take an error right here, but this is why we went to stock up on potions before coming back to the Wind Shrine. Boom! Also, we are 19 out of 30 ability points. We will at the very least want to have 11 more ability points. So, whenever you have a job class equipped in a battle, each battle has its own determined ability point amount that it gives to your character. How much ability points you gain, or how many, is actually strictly determined on the formation that you are encountering of the enemies, not the individual enemies, just the entire enemy formation. So all of the formations in this Wind Shrine here give exactly 1 ability point, so they are not particularly impressive on that end. If I were to fight the boss, for example, the Wing Raptor boss earlier gives 5 ability points, and for that matter, bosses don't give experience, they just give ability points, generally speaking. A bit more than usual, but also still not that impressive. It actually takes quite a while until we run into a type of enemy that would give us more than just one ability point. It would make sense to find it at this level, because levels are so close and around here the big scanning things often casually. Yeah. The question is how many casual players got to level 6 hang around here. I imagine quite a few. Like, you're just trying out your classes and see what they do, what their abilities are, before you decide what to lock them into. To be fair, I would imagine a lot of people would also not really necessarily re-enter the Wind Shrine. You actually prefer the no experience from bosses thing. Yeah, it's an interesting concept. Like, I'm not entirely sure why. But it makes solo character challenges, or low-level challenges, more reasonably doable. Okay, we gain level 11. Means we will deal a bunch more damage. We already have almost 300 HP. That is so much. We grinded in order to gain a little bit more than 300 HP on the Red Mage, because it took so long to get there. So we were farming a bunch of later game enemies to get a fair bit higher level, and the Knight almost easily, just almost level 11, already has about 300 HP. 11 or 13, looks like 13. Right. Still only 1 Elixirs. By the way, I'd like to point out all these leather shoes we have gotten so far. Those are also a 1 in 16 drop chance, but from the Black Goblins rather than the Moldwinds. So we've gotten lucky for rare drops, but not in the way that you would necessarily want to. They're good for sale. I mean, they're a bit stinky, but I suppose they give a little bit of money. At this point, it might be also worthwhile to explain. Enemies in Final Fantasy V, they always have, on each of their turns, a choice between one of their 3 moves they can use. Some enemies literally only have attack, attack, attack in their moveset, so that's literally the only thing they can do. But for the Moldwinds, on their first turn they can only ever attack, but their second turn they have a chance to use arrow and a chance to attack. I don't know what the probability is, but I would guess it's a 1 in 3 chance to use arrow and 2 in 3 chance to do a regular attack. I could look up the script because there is an amazing algorithms guide that outlines all of these things, but effectively whenever you see an ability, but you don't see it all the time, chances are it's a 1 in 3 chance, so it is pretty frequent still, even though it, well, could be rather dangerous. You can keep them for all the ladies later, shoes are the women's best friend. I mean, I know a few that really like shoes. For that matter. Oh, still no elixirs. Welcome to Easy Action 83. Hope you're doing well. They are goblin leather. No, the goblins wear those shoes presumably in these fights here, so I don't think the shoes are made out of goblin leather. It's more like goblin, like, processed leather. I think that makes more sense. Not these, come on. Made in Goblin Land, made by goblins. That's a good sales pitch to that innkeeper. Come down to buy local. I'm not sure about that. Bro encounter, come on. Goblins have a tanning industry. I wouldn't call it an industry, it's just they know how to tan leather. More leather shoes! Oh my goodness. I want at least 3 elixirs, so we're not gonna get out of here until we get them. Does not usually take that long to get them. Oh well. Level 12. Well, on the bright side, we get more damage as we grow more levels, but that's not the goal right here. We just want the elixirs, come on. Oh dear. Also, once again, we actually cannot one-shot the white snake in the back row because it's only quarter damage, and it would have, well, we would deal 15 damage. So if it paralyzes us, well, that's too bad. Hold A, the class challenge, well, to an extent. Knight is a little bit more involved with that stuff in a certain instance, but yeah, hold A. It's actually very true for a lot of classes if you think about it that way. Nope, no elixirs. Better than Berserker. I mean, with the Berserker we did not even have to hold the A button. We needed to just run in circles and occasionally heal in the menu. Brave Blade Run, indeed. Hate Visualizer, welcome. How are you doing? Just woke up. Good morning and welcome to the world of the living. I hope you have a nice day. Ah, still none. Wow. At level 13 we might even want to try it. Let me see how much damage we deal. Weapon attack is 15 with an enemy defense value of 0. Level 13, well, 105 minimum. Which, up to 112. Not quite enough actually, but if we double that... Alrighty, at level 16, we're going to go, even if we only have 1 elixir. Because at level 16 we only need 3 attacks in order to defeat the next boss. And yes, Mr. Greenie, that is including two-hand. Actually, I guess I don't have two-hand yet. I thought two-hand would be the next ability, but we now learned the guard, which is not what I was looking for. Actually, I need a little bit more than that. I need another 36 ability points, which means at least 36 encounters anyways. Cover guard two-handed? Yeah, I thought this was quicker, but I was mistaken to say the least. Indeed. For some reason I remember two-handed being one of the really easy and quick to learn ability, but I'm pretty sure this is not the first time I was mistaken on that end. Red Mage though? I mean, the Red Mage's final ability took a while. but the red mage had other tools to work with. Yeah, sunglasses, Grimer. I think Grimer has no idea how to sunglasses. I didn't expect to run out of potions, but at this rate we might. You said you can use two-handed and switch shield on and off, right? Yes, you can. You lose the two-handed bonus while you have a shield equipped, but as soon as you unequip it again, it should come back. Still no elixirs though. Yes, that's definitely going to be quite useful. At least you will make profits by selling those leather shoes and buying more potions. I mean, I suppose you're not wrong. The typical way of leveling as a merchant class. Oh dear. I remember all these merchants just sitting outside the item shops, selling the red potions and the fly wings and butterfly wings for slightly cheaper. So they make a little bit of profit thanks to their discount innate ability. Not innate, but leveled ability. Ah, those were simpler times. Eventually, we were so advanced that everybody had a merchant on one of their accounts and just went to buy fly wings in bulk. Or some people just didn't care. The good old days. I mean, there were still usually some people sitting in front of the shops. But that was more of a social service at that point rather than any business because of inflation. Oh well. By the way, in case anybody's wondering, we are talking about Ragnarok Online because sometimes we get to that topic again. Overcharge was so much better. Yeah, Overcharge was definitely pretty decent. But you need to manage your other characters. You need to put their items into a certain inventory or the Kafra in order to trade stuff over. And if I'm not mistaken, in the even earlier days, there was no shared inventory among characters, which meant in order to trade one item to another, we had to drop it, log out and quickly log over to the other character in order to pick it up. And here's the thing, I'm pretty sure I did not realize that the Kafra inventory was shared well before I stopped just doing that kind of item trade over. Make a merchant start hoarding all the items for all your other characters. You would sell red potion for 65, Zenny, in the middle of Babylon Dungeon 2 while resting for HP. Made good profit. And people complained about it. Yeah, I mean, it's literally like Secret of Mana and Nico. You are selling potions at a convenient place, and people pay for that convenience. What, you can just get out of the dungeon and buy them for cheaper. No problem. But if you wanna buy them here, why not? What is Babylon Dungeon anyways, to be honest? Or you mean Bioland? Bioland? The fishy dungeon. To be fair, it was kind of difficult to get to a shop from there. There we go. It was Bioland. It's a second A instead of an O there, if I'm not mistaken. It might have been a weird translation anyways. Yeah, the fishy dungeon level 2, where there is crabs named Vadon, there is hydras, which are the only aggressive monsters, but they are stationary. What else is there? Later they added the little jellyfish thingies, squids. There were the planktons. I got a good memory. I played that game way too much. How dare you pick a good spot to take advantage of people's desperation? Yeah. No, frogs are friends, not food. But I really thank you. Thank you so much for 23 rounds of support. And actually a lot more than that. Welcome back, and I'm glad you enjoyed your stay. I hope you're doing well. You would do that in sewers too in the early levels as well? I see. I mean, at least in sewers there was literally a save point right outside plus a merchant. So... yeah. Maybe people should come prepared for the dungeon they're in. The catch about this is, I don't know whether you know Ragnarok Online Thalfon, but often you would spend so much time in a dungeon that you literally run out of resources even though you take as many with you as you can. Just because leveling was super slow in that Ragnarok Online old game there. Both the dungeons you mentioned drop tons of healing items. Let's see, Hydras can drop meat pretty frequently, but Hydras are also dangerous if you don't have ranged attacks. They have relatively high dexterity, so dodging them is not too easy, plus they have relatively high attack speed, although they have no physical defense really, but reasonably high HP compared to the other enemies in the area. Let's see... aside from that, Plankton they drop single cell, but that's about it. Vadon dropped the snappers and sometimes a shell, but no items to heal. The Marina are even stronger. A merchant can hold a cart and have over 800 potions inside. Yes. Definitely one of the bigger advantages over a merchant. The downside is if you don't have cart at higher level, as in at least level 10, you're going to move slower. A mage can hold like 10 potions. A mage could hold like... So here's the thing, I remember holding at most 25 to 30 white potions in War of Imperium as a wizard. So that's approximately right. Slim potions? Yeah, I've never had enough money to do slim potions. Actually, I had named potions, or named white potions, which gave a substantial boost in recovery with a top 10 alchemist. Milk was the way to go. Milk, yeah, actually milk was very, very efficient. The main downside is you could not buy it on certain servers. I remember being able to buy milk in Frontera in the international server, but Eurot actually did not have that merchant, I think. Or maybe it was the meat vendor? No, I'm pretty sure the milk vendor was not there. Or maybe it was carrots? Yeah, either way, carrots were really good too. I believe nowadays there's even a card that increases your chance to, or increases your recovery rate with meat, that ends up making it incredibly, like, efficient. Plus, enemies even drop more, or have a chance to drop meat, whether they have it before or not. Grape juice. Grapes recovers SP. Not a whole lot, neither did grape juice, but compared to blue potions, way cheaper. And especially if you were a... oh dear, what are the advantage? A scholar, you only needed 1 SP to cast life conversion anyways. And hey Carissa, welcome! Yes, next challenge. Well, Red Mage actually indeed had very little trouble. We even would have defeated Neo X Def second try, or was it third try? I think it was third try if I didn't mess up. But yeah, Red Mage didn't have too much trouble overall. It was very smooth for the most part. Now that brings back memories, indeed. Meat had the best HP per use for low level users. Working on your archer/hunter. Yeah. I kind of have fond memories of Ragnarok Online nowadays, but I'm not sure I could really play it anymore. Like at the time, one of my favorite things was when I finally created my Acolyte. After all that running around, I had a character that could heal itself. Agility up and blessing, and with a little bit of intelligence I was able to, as in literally the stat intelligence, I was able to sustain myself in most areas and never had to take a break. So I could just continuously whack all the enemies without ever having to rest. That was my favorite thing, because pretty much no other class could realistically do that without investing a ton of resources. Mages in general seem particularly good in this game. Yes, actually, absolutely. Mages are crazy good for leveling early game, especially if you know what you're doing. Like, there's a bunch of really high-level monsters. Actually, I think with the new renewal experience, that does not work quite as well anymore nowadays. But at the time when I played, you could get in a really high-level area as a regular mage. I think the earliest I went there was like level 28 or something. That's crazy. Defeat one enemy and I gain like a full level because the enemy is normally that strong. They're called stings in the Glass Time sewers. Getting there is a bit of a trip, but with a bit of practice it's actually not too bad. And the big danger there were initially the Taru, as in the stronger mice enemies that would just run at you and knock you out really quickly if you don't fly away rather fast. And later on they put gargoyles there, which are ranged creatures and even more dangerous if you don't know how to handle them. But leveling a mage to top level 50 was actually one of my favorite things to do. I leveled like 5, 6, 7 mages. Was I making a monk with that Acolyte? No, actually, when I made an Acolyte, they were not even second subclasses originally. And then I made a Battle Priest out of it, just because that seemed like fun. Also, Knight as a physical class, access to more equipment than most physical classes, right? Let's put it this way, as a physical class we have access to the Knight weapons, which is actually quite a diverse bunch of weapons. And overall a pretty good one, to say the least, so... kind of? Definitely the Knight has a very nice arsenal of weapons that it can use. In Final Fantasy V, that is. So definitely... more versatile in certain instances. Very well defended thanks to heavy armor, at least against physical attacks. But aside from that, well, you just hit enemies really hard. That's it. Also, 8 more battles until we actually unlock the hitting enemies very hard. Firewall plus Firebolt, yeah. Later on I even had like mages where I leveled up Fireball to level 10. Just so I could defeat multiple stings very easily, very quickly, because I was just leeching another character up to top 50. Did I do the vertical wall tricks? Yes. So here's the funny thing. I wouldn't say I invented it, but I've never seen anybody use it before me. But I started using it, and eventually I saw more and more mages use the vertical walls. Especially against undead enemies, where they would just walk into one piece of it and take a ton of damage. I learned very quickly how to take advantage of that. And so here's the thing, technically, a diagonal wall is even better than a vertical or horizontal wall for that matter, because it actually has, I think, 5 pieces of fire, as opposed to the 3 that normal walls have. But it's more difficult to lure enemies through that. Effectively anyways, and you can only have 3 fireballs up at a time. Does the knight require a lot of grinding? Initially, it will take up to... In order to get the ability I want for the next boss, it takes a bit of grinding here, like we've been running in circles for a while. But also, I've been running in circles for quite a while here, because I still want the elixirs, and I just haven't gotten lucky. At this point, you could even call it unlucky if you'd want. But yeah, initially a little bit of grinding for the knight, but after that I think we're going to be mostly fine. For the knight here in Final Fantasy V, we're actually going to do a Brave Blade run, which means I cannot and I don't want to run away from any of the encounters whatsoever, which means we are fighting literally everything along the way. So this is going to be a bit of a different experience than usual. Feels like most of the physical classes will be nearly the same. I mean, other physical classes you can run away from combat. Firewall was considered pretty useless before that. Yeah, one of the biggest problems of Firewall is on how, like, it's scaled with levels. Firewall before level 7 or 8 is virtually useless, because when you level up Firewall in Ragnarok Online, you effectively level 3 different things. Let me see. Okay, if you have 3 elixirs, that's fine. You level 3 things in Ragnarok Online with Firewall. The first one is how long the Firewall lasts in terms of time. Level, like, below level 5, you don't even need to try, really. The next thing you level with Firewall is how many hits it can dish out before individual pieces disappear. I believe that's equivalent to the level, so it's 5 on level 5, 10 on level 10, I think. Not entirely sure. And then the third one is how quick the spellcast is. The higher level Firewall is, the quicker the spellcast is. Okay, one more fight and we finally have our two-handed unlocked. Is the fully powered Brave Blade stronger than the fully powered chicken knife? By numbers, yes. Practically, not if you have enough agility to make the chicken knife more worthwhile. Because chicken knife scales off both of strength as well as agility. Whereas the Brave Blade only scales off of strength. Alrighty, we have acquired the ability to double grip. Hold a weapon with 2 hands, double the attack power. So this is quite literal. We can only hold certain weapons with 2 hands. For example, we cannot hold a dagger with 2 hands, only broadswords or swords, samurai weapons, and maybe some other stuff. Either way, we can't use a shield during this, which means no more chance to block, but we will literally deal double damage with that. Which is crazy good this early on. We will easily one-shot all regular enemies, and we actually will 3-shot the next boss, I think. Not entirely sure. Let's go. Depends on where you level up. If you start leveling on Floras, then you need Firewall just to progress. I mean, here's the thing. I was so used to leveling mages. I was going to Stings once I had Firewall level 6 or 7, and that was sufficient for me. Because at that early level, you gain a full level until you're like level 35. So even though it cost me my entire SP bar, I would just regenerate it as soon as I defeat a single enemy. So I just spam a Firewall, and that's that. Piano Flex? We did that with the Bard. In SSCC, I think because of two-handed, the Brave Blade is strictly better. I mean, yes, for the specific solo challenge, Brave Blade is strictly better for straight-up damage output. But other weapons wouldn't be too far behind, especially if we can take advantage of elemental weaknesses. Alrighty. You know the best place to level up mage were Floras, north from Frontera. Grind them a lot. Yeah. Some geos were also pretty easy with fireballs. But as I said, with my mage, I went firewall. As soon as I had access to it level 6 or 7, I went straight to stings. So I had a lot of experience in that after a while. One of my favorite memories as well was, at some point, Fire Pillar from the wizard ability was insanely powerful because you could put it under enemies. It's considered a trap, and eventually they patched it so you can no longer put traps under enemies. But the reason why Fire Pillar was so ridiculously powerful is because if a trap is set under an enemy, or more specifically multiple enemies, each of the enemies individual would trigger that trap, and if the trap also did area of effect damage, each of the area of effect damage would also trigger the other enemies. So let's say you put one Fire Pillar on the 5 enemies. Each one of these 5 enemies takes 5 times damage from each of the Fire Pillar attacks. So it scaled like crazy depending on how many enemies there were. That was true for all the traps. Eventually, it was a lot less useful because you could no longer immediately put it on the enemies. Fire Pillar itself was kind of expensive to use because above level 5 you needed to use a blue gemstone in order to cast it. The nice thing about Fire Pillar itself, however, was that it ignored magic defense, which is kind of a big deal for certain bosses, and especially if they had a weakness to fire, then you could absolutely demolish them. Yes, traps stacked as well. So here's the funny thing. Traps still stack if you know how to use it. It's a bit of a visual bug, to say the least. Well, actually, they might have patched this nowadays, I don't know. But after they removed the ability to stack traps, my wizard with Fire Pillar was significantly less useful until I figured out a certain thing. So, in Ragnarok Online, you could push traps if you had an active area of effect on the ground. For example, a hunter could use Arrow Shower to push a trap around. What a wizard could do is they could use, I think it's called... I forget what it's called, it's something like Sight. Like, it normally pushes enemies away when they get too close. It's supposed to be a defensive ability, but if you get too close to a trap, it would push the trap without removing that. So what I was able to do is I was able to just put a Fire Pillar down, or 2 of them, push it into each other, put another one down, push it over there, etc. And just basically stack 5 Fire Pillars on top of each other, and then just push them into enemy stacks as well. Which was incredibly laggy, but it was taking care of all the enemies really easily. They patched that as well. Yeah, I figured. I mean, we took it a little bit too far, or by we I mean my guildmates. They literally crashed the server a few times because they figured, let's just mop all the enemies in the area just to see the explosion that happens. And they literally crashed the server because the multiplication was way too much when they stacked 5 traps onto like 50 enemies, and the server couldn't handle the calculation. Was kind of fun though. Alrighty. So here we have Bandersnatch enemies, and they are actually decently powerful overall, so trying to take them down is not an easy task. They deal a good amount of damage. Also, I should have bought potions. I forgot about that. Fairies right now is just guarding, so she takes 0 physical damage from them, making it so we don't have to worry about her taking any unnecessary damage while we still try to knock out our allies here. You would stack Claymore against Sandman. Yeah, that would work. Claymore Trap was fire, I think. So Sandman are weak to that. Alrighty. So, we now deal 210 damage, and I do believe these enemies here do actually have defense. So, being able to one-shot them is actually kind of crazy. And that is going to be a theme for the night. Not terribly fast, but the physical attack power that we have here is very, very substantial. Alrighty, going to go back real quick to buy potions, because I forgot about that, and then we go and try to tackle the first boss. Let's actually sell all the shoes. We have 6 leather shoes. Wow. Considering that goblins are less frequent in encounters, that's kind of ridiculous. One of my favorite memories is, you know, when your guild has a castle from the War of Imperium, you could access the guild dungeons. And unless you are allianced with another guild and that are in the same guild dungeon, you would actually have active PvP down there. And if you die in Ragnarok Online, you lose 1% of your experience, which is a lot towards the later stages of the game. But if you die to specifically an enemy in PvP, it wouldn't actually, like, do that. So, you wouldn't lose any experience is what I mean. But you do lose the experience if you die to enemies. And that could very easily happen in that dungeon, especially because those were some of the best places to level. So I would use my fire pillar and just stack like 3 of them and push them around until my priest managed to grab enough enemies around the area, so I can just knock them all in one hit. And once in a while, an unsuspecting guild, even if they were not enemies, just ended up walking into my fire pillar stack and just straight up died. Poor guy. Because it's actually relatively difficult to control the stack of fire pillars, because the visuals actually do not update where the fire pillar stack goes until you leave the screen and come back. So visually you just need to memorize where the fire pillar stack is in order to push it properly. So that's kind of awkward. Alrighty, so let's see, just healing up to full. Put the elixirs over here, let's go. So upcoming, we have the first real boss of the game, and this is a huge roadblock for a lot of solo cactus. Already the first real boss, a huge roadblock. That is because a lot of solo cactus don't have many tools to work with yet. At least the knight, this is the reason why we grinded out two-handed, can deal a lot of damage. But we're slower than Carboss here, because Carboss has a speed of 30, we have a speed of 28, so we're already taking 1 more hit than before. And the biggest problems about this guy is, in the very first turn, Carboss has a 2 in 3 chance to paralyze us. We got lucky that he didn't. Also, I could have equipped a shield initially. He has 650 HP. Ooh, that's not gonna be enough, is it? Wow, we got super lucky, he just attacked again. Ooh, that's not gonna be enough in 3 attacks. Ooh, I wanted to take him out in 3 attacks. Alright, Tentacle is an attack that deals damage as well as paralyzes us at the same time, which is a huge problem in the solo character challenge. Alrighty, however in turns 2 and 3, he can use an ability called Tail Screw. Tail Screw puts us into critical HP, which is really bad for us. Alright, so here I have determined that I cannot one-shot him or 3-shot him. He has 650 HP, we dealt 210 per attack. That is unfortunately just about 630. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to equip a shield for the 10% chance to block, hoping to block some attacks. Okay, we got super lucky regardless. I'm going to unequip the shield for more damage and one-shot. Well, I mean, one-shot the encounter. That is ridiculously lucky, by the way. We got a super nice pattern. What is very common is that Carboss will paralyze us first turn, then put tail screw on us second turn and then just attack and kill us in the third turn without being able to respond whatsoever. So that was a super nice encounter. That's... you don't really see that all that often. Have you seen how Smiths have 100% fire resistance? Yes. I've actually theory crafted that before they implemented it. Before it actually was useful in terms of what else we would need potentially. And it's a lot of fun to just think about these things. And Gar, thank you so much for 34 months of support. I really appreciate that. That's a long time. Welcome back, and I'm glad you enjoy your stay. Thank you so much. But yeah, I've done a lot of theory crafting, but because I was not particularly diligent in leveling or in grinding, I never had a really good position to test out the higher level builds, just because I was too lazy to grind. People will fire wall / pillar spam in War of Imperium, you just walk through them. Yeah. I don't know, I've actually never seen a wizard use fire pillar anymore. After a certain amount of time in the War of Imperium, it was just not worth it. Because most knights at the time I played anyways had at least a water armor, if not a fire-based armor, usually fire-based armor, to be able to rush through a defense. Traps and Ice Storm. Yeah, there's definitely are some of the more popular strategies for that. Alrighty, we have arrived on the undead ship, which means we kind of want to start taking out these enemies. So I actually do not want to see enemies in this kind of formation because we don't have any area of effect, which means the more enemies there are, the more time it's going to take to knock them out. They're not going to be terribly dangerous to our knight with so much HP at this point in the game, but it's just going to take a while. Yeah, Ice Pick in main or offhand, plus Carded Gladius or Dagger is crazy strong. And yeah, goodbye Sildra. Sorry, I'm just talking about Ragnarok Online, kind of not even commenting on Final Fantasy 5. Normally... oh shoot, haha! Well, there goes my elixir. That's fine. I expected to have 0 after Carbos anyways, so that's okay. I'm actually deliberately not going to go out of my way to pick up various things, just because I have to fight more enemies, and the less enemies I have to fight, the better. There's a few chests around here, none of them are particularly worthwhile to pick up, except for one that is kind of far out of the way that contains a Phoenix Stone. So yeah. Use the fire immunity trick when people didn't know much about 100% fire immunity. Nice. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. When you basically have the knowledge advantage, and you can display that. Towards the end of the lifespan, I actually ended up playing a little bit on private servers, just because it was more fun to try out various builds. And I tried out that one private server, where they had the cast speed and cast delay reduced by a ridiculous amount, on top of unlocking the stats to be leveled up to 200. So it made for pretty ridiculous builds, but it was kind of fun to play around with. I made a Stalker at the time, just because I thought that was the most fun to mess with people. And the funny thing is, I knew how to stack defenses against the most commonly spammed abilities of wizards in PvP and high wizards, and they just could not break through my defenses. Like, I would just sit in a corner and they would accuse me of using an item called a Seed of Yggdrasil, which recovers 50% of your HP and MP, but you cannot see it. So when you ever use a healing item, you usually see the animation, but the Seeds of Yggdrasil you couldn't see. So of course, it would be kind of a common thing in a sense to use that item on your character when you want to be sneaky and say, "Ha, I'm so strong and you don't need to do anything," when in fact you are just healing. But it was just like, I did not need to heal because they were not dealing really any damage. That was the fun part. Like, I would literally do some stupid things such as put cards into my armor that gives me more flat magic defense, and that was absolutely not worthwhile in most circumstances, because most of the time it's more efficient to put like things in your shield that reduce damage against demi-humans. But because I was stacking so much magic defense, I was taking like 5% damage, despite not having any elemental defenses. You can instant cast with a supernovice if you put the time into it. Oh yeah, that's one of the things I was just kind of theory crafting for a while. How to most efficiently use a supernovice, because there is so many different things you can do, and it feels like it would be super fun. But I never ended up building any supernovice myself anyways. You like the solo character challenge runs, but it happens me to 3 other party members knocked out all game. I mean, they're just sleeping, they are resting. It's fine. They are just preparing for the next adventure by relaxing and resting for a lot longer than others. It's okay. So here, of course, we always pick up the map. The map is incredibly important because otherwise I will get lost all the time. So these Undead Rusks enemies are actually the only ones where I have to use the 200 ability in order to knock them out reliably. They have enough HP that I would not otherwise be able to one-shot them. Knocked. Here's a meta view of it. The 3 knocked out characters all having a collective stream of the solo characters saving the day. I like that idea. That's nice. So I want to go down here mainly in order to pick up the antidotes, because you cannot buy antidotes until, well, the next city. And the next boss can poison us. And having a poison status is really, really bad if we can't remove it, because each step you take costs you 1/16 of your maximum HP. After 16 steps, basically you have 1 HP. You don't die to it in the overworld, but it's a lot of damage. Actually, technically speaking, you can die to it in the overworld if you have an HP exactly divisible by 16. So less than pleasant. The golden Mog Boots are Omega's Disco Abyss. Right. I feel like that flies right over my head. Welcome to Ice Burner. How are you doing today? And welcome to you as well, Raving Loon. I hope you have a nice day. And for that matter, welcome everybody. I hope you have a good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. Currently we are playing a solo character challenge run with just a single knight. And we're also making it a Brave Blade run, which means we do not run away from any encounter whatsoever, so we have to fight everything, which poses its kind of unique challenge. Alrighty, let's go for the next boss. As Captain Ferris is getting all the important work done, her crew stays safe. Oh, stays at a safe distance. This isn't even Trendo. Right. I suppose I haven't not actually played that much Career Day recently. I played it a bit when it came out, but I don't actually really know the more recent developments. Maybe I should play that sometime. Red Mage already got done? Yeah, Red Mage had it relatively easy throughout most of the game. The only two problem bosses I would consider to be real problems were the final boss, but that's mainly because it was such a long battle and I made some mistakes, and Gilgamesh at the end of World 2. Not even X-Death, it's just Gilgamesh. I guess X-Death also was a bit tricky because we did not have much maximum HP. How was Galuf not seduced by the Siren's Call? The story goes that the Siren's Call is more of an image of somebody you know or you love, and they being basically there, and if you recognize them as such, that you are basically being seduced. However, for Galuf, he does not recognize his granddaughter currently, so there's that. Alrighty, this is Siren. She uses wow, that's rude. She uses 3 spells in her human form and turns into her undead form. Her undead form has severely increased physical defenses, as well as significantly increased physical attack power. So, rather unpleasant to deal with overall, I dare to say. What I can do is guard here in order to reduce the damage we take from the physical part. Unfortunately, she did put me to sleep earlier, so that was a bit unpleasant. Alrighty. She, however, turns back into her human form, and she takes significantly more physical damage. She has, I think, 900 HP. Ooh, haste again. She loses haste whenever she changes forms. But, we're basically mostly fine after she transforms. So for the undead form, I don't feel like it's worthwhile to attack. Like, we would still deal about 100 damage, probably. But it's probably better for us to just defend, considering how much damage she seems to deal on these forms. Alrighty, then we attack on the human form again. I think we got 4 attacks in so far, minus whatever she cured. So it is actually 2 more attacks now, until we win. Slow would have been actually super bad, because slow does not disappear, and slow and haste are the most powerful status effects in the entire game in the Final Fantasy V. Like, being slowed is ridiculously bad for you. However, Siren does not have any cheap moves for the most part, aside from slow, I suppose, compared to Carl Boss, so we would win most of the time. Depending on whether you defeat her in the human form or the undead form, you get different items as a drop. In the humanoid form, you get a bronze armor. If you would kill her in the undead form, she would give you a bronze shield. Generally speaking, the bronze shield is a better item to get. So here, this is why we have the antidote. The bronze shield is a better item to get, because, well, it has higher chance to block and also gets you some defense, but because we are using a two-handed weapon anyways, without a shield, the bronze armor just happens to be more convenient right now, so we take a little bit less damage now. Slow is obnoxious? Yeah. Basically, if you think about it this way, if a character is slowed, they don't just go twice as slow, even though that's kind of technically what the formula indicates, but how it effectively plays out is you go about 2.5 to 3 times slower than the enemy. Which means if you're slowed, the enemy gets 2 or 3 turns in for every 1 turn you get. On average. Depends a bit on the type of enemy and where we are, but it's kind of ridiculous, and the haste also works that way. It's just a buff instead of a debuff on a character. There is no way to get rid of slow outside of casting haste on yourself, and the knight does not have the ability to cast haste. So we are a little bit, well, bound in that respect. Oh, you mean the effect it applies to the sprite? There's flashing effect? Yeah, it's true. It's a fair bit unpleasant. Hey, there's a Galura. I'm sorry. Galuras don't even give experience, they only give ability points. I think it actually will just run away if I wait long enough. They're not actually attacking at all. think. I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, there it goes. Bye. Sorry, I did not mean to hurt you. If you're looking to gain ability points without gaining levels because you're trying to do a low level challenge, well, Galuras are your way to go. So in here I can buy a few more things. So among other things, I will want to upgrade my weapon as well as my armor. Hey Fiful, welcome, and welcome to your spell surface. I hope you're both having a nice day so far. So, don't need the broadsword daggers. Don't need the leather shield anymore either, because we are going to get a bronze shield here. The Regal Cutlass is basically just a stronger broadsword, so just keep in mind, we actually double the attack power of all of our weapons. So instead of 30, we now have 44 attack power baseline, multiplied with currently, I believe, 6 as our baseline attack power. We get a bronze shield, a bronze helmet, and we already have the bronze armor from the enemy earlier. Bronze armor. And the shields, well, we could equip. We might want to equip it, in fact, just because we probably one-shot all the enemies here anyways, but I will need to test this. Actually, let me just equip the shield for now and see how that turns out. And that's kind of all there is to this here. 5 potions. I think I still have 87 potions, 86. I think we still have enough. This next section here is not too dangerous. But then again, this next section here is not too dangerous if I don't have to fight everything. Hi Galura. I'm just gonna wait. We have a staring contest, which Ferris is going to win 100% of the time. See? Let's see, Tattoo. Under 33 damage, seems to be enough to kill them. The bronze shield does not just give a 15% chance to block physical attacks, but also gives a little bit more defense, so even if we get hit, the bronze shield is still protecting us a bit more. There will actually be a lot of enemies that I don't really know anything about, because I don't usually fight them. Because, let's put it this way, a lot of enemies, while they're not terribly strong or dangerous, they just take longer to take out than they are necessarily worth in comparison to going to more efficient places to grind and level. So this guy here, or these guys here, give us 140 gil, 100 experience, so better than the previous areas, but not particularly much in comparison to future areas. Alrighty, I'm going to take a short break before we climb the mountain here, and then we come back. So thank you very much for watching, and until afterwards.